Hello everyone, I'm Garima Vajpayee. I'm here with another episode talking about cloud exit strategy. It's a very interesting topic and you would be wondering why are we talking about this in the age of cloud adoption? Let's demystify and let's get started with this interesting topic that why orchestrating a cloud exit plan is an important aspect of your cloud adoption process and what is the role of a technology leader here. So let's quickly get started on this. This session is coming at the right time because experts largely agree on what happened on July 19th. It's too early to get a firm handle on the price tag for a global IT breakdown. But those costs could easily top up to $1 billion, said Patrick Andreessen, CEO of Andreessen Economic Group. So does it mean that should we leave the cloud or we should start to think about it? Is cloud migration reversing? Is cloud repatriation a growing trend? Did we fall trap of the pandemic rush to cloud? And some of these questions can be answered through a blog which I have written on DevOps.com quite some time back, Cloud First to Cloud Smart to Cloud Minimalism, a strategic shift. But let's also discuss a few more things here to kind of connect the dots. And I'll start with one of the reports, which was presented by Parametrics Insurance Group around cloud outage and the Fortune 500 companies. An impact analysis was done, and there was some key highlights of that report. I have put some snippets of that report into this slide. Of the three major cloud service providers, the Fortune 500 exposure to outage of Amazon Web Services is greatest, since more than three-quarters of 500 largest US companies are AWS users. More than half of the users of MS Azure, and some of these companies also use more than one cloud provider. So while their exposure to Google Cloud Platform is less than 9%. The cloud region relied upon by the largest number of Fortune 500 companies is AWS US East. And a 24-hour outage of this region of mission critical services has a projected direct revenue loss of $3.4 billion as estimated by Parametrics Insurance. Critical digital supply chain now exists alongside traditional physical supply chain, and any glitches in the digital supply chain can bring the enterprises to a halt, what we have seen in July 19th scenario. So it's not only important which cloud region the services are hosted to, but how well interconnected these services are and what are the ways of working in terms of testing and rollout of these services when it comes to the user base. So when we think about the exit strategy or the exit triggers for cloud and why organizations have started to at least think in that dimension is few of these factors listed on the slides. One of the first and the foremost key consideration is cost. The underlying cloud cost has exceeded the initial expectations, especially organizations who were early onboarders who took advantage of license pricing, reserve instances. There was like a lot of offers and price deduction on adoption and migration of workloads into the cloud. They took advantage of that. Now that advantage is kind of slowly going away, and the cost of the cloud cost is also growing. So this is one of the key considerations. Another consideration is security and data sovereignty. With the rise of AI and the AI-based applications, more and more companies are getting serious about data ownership and security of data. And when it comes to bringing their data catalogs to life, how they monetize data, modern companies are looking at, how they comply to new regulations and how cloud workloads can be one of the points where they can, they have some resistance in terms of, sharing data ownership. So that's why they are looking towards alternative approaches to bring back workloads which are data centric. Availability, performance, and resilience. So cloud outage can impact not only organizations' SLAs, but also could cost you it could cost much more because this world is interconnected now and you have back-to-back SLAs with your own users. So again, avoiding what happened on July 19th, and trying to look at plan B. Last factor on this slide is skill gap. So obviously, if you think about like organization who have a skill gap on a specific, let's say, cloud provider, and they are looking at like fulfilling that skill gap through outsourcing partners or some other, ways and means, and they think that there are other alternatives or viable options available, that can also trigger their cloud exit strategy. And then we will also talk about cost. So cloud cost are at a crossroads. So what it means is that the OpEx for the workloads which are on cloud are growing, and it's growing out of the expectation. And this is again based on some of the triggers which are architectural related, some of these triggers are operational related, and some of these are just some triggers are basically depending on how many number of processors you have, or how you used to run code, what kind of data you host on the cloud, and so on and so forth. So currently our cloud spending represents approximately 30% of the overall IT budget, and if can exceed to $1.3 trillion by 2025. And according to Dave McCarthy, Research Vice President of Cloud Infrastructure Services, IDC. So Gartner advises CIOs to negotiate commercial terms with their cloud providers, such as volume or time-based commitments. Another option is to move from on-demand to reserve instances, and there can be other, ways and means to cut down cost. There is whole another dimension of FinOps, which is kind of growing interest for the practitioners, and there are many ways where they are advocating to control the cost of cloud adoption. And then there can be other factors as well to trigger the exit. It's not only the cost. So a cloud vendor, for example, decides to exit market completely with the growing scrutiny and regulations. For example, in EU, there can be a possibility that some of these cloud providers might look at that aspect as well. So organizations seems to have a plan B option or an alternative for that kind of you know um, situation. It also is evident that in the growing competitive ecosystem, organizations require new features and new capabilities, and it might happen that they are more confident about their in-house capabilities rather than cloud providers capability. And in some cases, cloud provider also becomes a competitor in this space. So that might also trigger some exit or alternative exit discussions around that. Other factors would be like sponsored cyber attacks related to a certain geography, or triggered towards such certain geographies, energy price inflation, key material shortages in particular segment or particular geography as well. So these all are like some of these factors might also trigger some exit discussions. There is another dimension to it is service and contractual exit triggers. Service related triggers are more tangible in nature, where you can foresee SLA. Let's say if you have continuous SLA breaches spanning over multiple months, resulting into material financial losses. The major breach of trust due to a major service incidents or instance in a multi-day outage. Contractual triggers, exit can be triggered by, for instance, a change in regulation with a specific country, change in services, or can be related to security incidents. Before we move forward, I would also like to highlight my own journey, creating these talks and having discussions within the community on emerging technology. it's very demanding and overwhelming. It requires exceptional level of dedication and focus. Thankfully, I found Magic Mind. It is a mental performance shot. It complements my healthy routine. I like to take it in the afternoon as a routine booster. It helps me navigate the afternoon crash and decrease my stress level. One shot of Magic Mind daily gets me focused and mentally clear, motivated and productive while reducing stress. Magic Mind, on top of it, donates 5 cents for each bottle sold to mental health charities that help US homeless communities. They are 100% carbon neutral, shipped internationally over 65 countries. And good news, we have a limited time offer for you, which you can use. You can get up to 48% off on your first subscription and 20% off on one-time purchases with code LEVECAST, LEEVECAST 20 at checkout. You can find the link to buy with discount coupon in the description box, or you can claim it at https www.magicmind.com/levicast. So moving forward with cloud repatriation examples. What cloud repatriation really looks like. And 25% of organizations surveyed in United Kingdom have already moved half or more of their cloud-based workloads back to on-premise infrastructure. This is according to a recent study by Citrix, a cloud software group business unit. The survey questioned 350 IT leaders on their current approaches to cloud computing. The survey also showed 93% of respondents have been involved in a cloud repatriation project in the near future. So obviously, cloud exit strategy is not something new to practitioners, but what it refers to is transitioning or exiting of an outsourcing function and data to either alternate cloud provider or return of these functions to on-premise or even discontinue the process. This also refers to as reverse migration. Exit plan is a central plan towards the exit strategy, and it includes the phases in involved into it. It has roles and responsibility, it has guidelines, it has time and money needed. So we will talk more about an exit plan in the upcoming slides. But let's give you some examples. Like, is it real that companies are getting serious about exiting cloud? And one of the examples we have is from Dropbox. It's a real-world example of a company that decided to move most of its computing off from the public cloud. The company infrastructure was originally built on Amazon's AWS, but in 2016, the company announced that it has moved 90% of its workload. In Dropbox case, cloud repatriation was primarily about saving money by optimizing their infrastructure, customer data to custom-built hybrid cloud infrastructure. Also, if you look at a snapshot which was taken from one of the reports produced in and around the servers and storage workload, it looks like it's a complex process that requires careful planning and consideration for a variety of factors. So some of these companies have plans to move workloads on premise on a private cloud. 30% of it are moving towards that off premise and private cloud. 27% on-premise traditional, 24%, and off-premise traditional is 18%. So it's a mixed bag of opportunity here, and people are starting to think about these alternatives in different ways. And what can be the possible next steps, when you start to create a plan B for your workloads? Creating an exit plan is one of the key components of that. So how do you define which workloads or what areas of applications you will focus on? So basically, I would recommend to have a defined goal and objective towards what you want to achieve through this exit plan? Is it cost optimization? Is it looking at new innovative areas through in-house capability, or is it something else? Understanding the migration options, especially for bulk workloads. So if you are thinking about moving on an on-premise, private data center. So what can be the rationale that maybe you are worried about the security and data sovereignty of your workloads? So maybe you want to target those applications which are more data centric. Also, if you think about like applications which are more cloud native, for example, you want to move that into a private ecosystem, and leave the backup and those kind of workloads as is in the cloud. So this is a selective process, and this migration options need to be built with holistic approach. Estimation of project cost and timeline. So it's a quite a big project in itself when you start to think about migrating the workloads out of the cloud. Testing, transition, and cutover should be considered with um, greater due diligence. People plan, skill of your own people within your organization. Can they handle this? Do you need upskilling? Do you need an outsourcing partner? Do you need a strategic partner to do the migration or handle or manage the operations? All these parts are also to be considered. Management plan, like how do you manage processes? How do you manage SLAs, assets, change, configuration, incident, problem, even financial management, etc., needs to be considered. And business continuity plans, such things as backup and recovery, as well as disaster recovery. How would you ensure that you have the capability to ensure business continuity? And if, let's say, we are discussing about migration options, what workloads make the most sense to sit in the cloud versus on-premise? So it depends on a number of factors, as we discussed, including applications and its users, geography, and much more. Workloads that see data moving constantly back and forth in and out of the cloud between applications could be candidates for moving as one way to avoid ingress or egress fees. Backup data that fairly static is in nature could also be a good option to keep it in the cloud, as I said. Latency sensitive edge use cases are another way of looking at it, where public cloud might not make as much as sense as your edge co-located hosted data centers. Another key consideration is hardware performance, which can also play a major role in how do you model your workloads in premise and on cloud. Also, as we discussed, estimating project cost and timeline, clawing back from cloud is not easy or a quick fix. Understand your network application dependencies, understand what workloads you have, where you have it, including VMs, number of CPUs, RAM, storage. Figure out the cost. Reclaiming data could result in a change between CapEx and OpEx and may require a longer view of things. Test everything works before you begin to exit the cloud in earnest. Test the latency, test the hardware, run simulation workloads, do failover exercises, include room to grow. On-premise workloads, even those in private cloud, don't have the same near infinite capacity to scale as public cloud. Some other consideration, people plan, human capital shift, like repatriating from an on-premise cloud model requires a workforce skilled in managing physical IT infrastructure, which can differ markedly from managing cloud resources. Shift may necessitate retraining existing staff, recruiting new talent with specialized skill, and both. The transition period can also strain IT departments as that they juggle maintaining cloud services while building out on-premise capabilities. So center management capabilities, asset management, hardware management, enterprise procurement. These are some areas where you would need to reskill or upskill people. Management plans, like financial reallocation, is not an easy task. So, cloud repatriation would demand a significant reallocation of financial resources. Investment in physical infrastructure, including servers, network equipment, can be substantial. Additionally, there may be cost associated with realizing applications on premise environment and potential penalties for early termination of cloud service contracts. Regaining control and visibility, setting OKRs aligned to the business vision and increasing the control and visibility over the IT environment. Direct oversight of usage, performance, and spend would be required. And uh, towards the end, I would say how to avoid past pitfalls in your new environment. There are many blogs, many articles written which you can take advantage of it. Why cloud migration reversing from public to on-premise private clouds. The references links can be found on the drop-down box. Cloud repatriation, 5 reasons to depart from data from cloud. Cloud migration reversed, migrating off the cloud. When should you use cloud versus on-premise storage? There was another article on techtarget.com. There is a good article, Don't Buy the Cloud Repatriation Claptrap, from InfoWorld. So there are many articles and many views on this topic. So if you're interested to know more about what people are saying, what experts are telling us, here are the links. And with that, we come to an end of this talk. Leadership in the age of AI is critical, as I always say, and leaders play an instrumental role in creating effective governance strategies and building upon various pillars as we discussed in the talk. So, in my next talk, I would come up with another interesting topic. But for now, I would say goodbye for all my listeners. And recapping my journey, don't forget Magic Mind, a mental performance short. It complements the healthy daily routine. And you have an offer today, so you can check out the offer in the drop down box. Thank you very much and see you next time.